Are you struggling with stress? Here are 4 things that you can do to start reducing your stress today. Stay tuned. Hi, welcome to Wellness Wednesday. This is Dr. Sanya Duki, and you are tuned into Ignite Mind and Spirit. This is a place where we pour into our hearts and our mind and find ways on how we can live a balanced and healthy life. And today we are focusing on how to manage stress. There are a lot of things that we could possibly do to manage stress, but I'm just going to share a few with you which I believe that you can start using today to help reduce that stress that you're going through. Now, stress is something that is very necessary in our life. If there are no stress that is applied to our life, then we don't grow. And but there are 2 types of stress. We have what we call eustress. This is the one that leads to productivity. So it's the stress that you experience when you have to study for an exam or get prepared for an interview. So things that you have to go through to help you to produce something. So within that regard, yes, very helpful. It helps you to grow, and it just helps you to overall be a better person and just not be stagnant in life, you know? So that's eustress. Of course, eustress can turn into the other stress we call distress. And this is when you feel a certain level of intense reaction to a stressful factor over a period of time that it starts to affect your ability to function on a day-to-day basis. It starts to affect you mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually. It impacts you in your occupation or your vocation. It impacts in the relationship that you have around you. And so this is the one that we definitely want to be aware of. This is the one we definitely need to target and try to manage and not allow it to keep going, because over a period of time, if we neglect working through the stress and managing our stress, then this in turn can turn into burnout. And then if we don't pay attention to the burnout, then it can lead to a breakdown. I don't know if you ever heard the terminology nervous breakdown. So we don't want that to happen, and it can lead to mental health related issues. And, you know, so yeah, if we can be proactive in managing our stress, then that definitely will help to prevent some of these things. So here are 4 things that you can start doing today to help you. First of all, you got to do an inventory. Actually, that's not the first thing yet, but let's do a review, an overview or introduction. We need to do an inventory of the things that causes us stress. Be aware, practice self-awareness, because if you're not certain of what it is that is causing you stress, then you really won't know what to address or to work on. So do an inventory, write a list of the things that are causing you stress. And it doesn't mean that you're making this list so you can just cross them out and say, okay, I'm done with these. They're causing me stress. I'm gonna tick them off and they're gone. No, because there are some stressors that you cannot get rid of. You can't just let it go like that, right? But your awareness of it helps you to be able to know how to approach it. All right, so do an inventory. So when you have identified what your stressors are, there's some point in your life where maybe you can reframe the way you approach the stress. So for example, if you find that commuting to work is very hard for you and you just need the time and space to relax and to get your mind mentally prepared for a stressful day, are there other methods that you can use that can be easy for you? For example, is it possible to carpool with someone, or is it possible to use a public transportation like a train or a bus? That way you can relax, you can unwind while you're on the bus. And then if that's something that wouldn't work for you, then you try to think of ways in which you can have a better time in your car as you're commuting or you're traveling to work. So how can I avoid certain stressors? What is it that I can do to adjust in some way or to help the situation to be much more manageable? Reframe the way you deal with the situation. Think of creative ways in dealing with the situation. Instead of being overwhelmed about it, think of what can I do to adjust this? If I find it's very hard for me to think of how to, it's hard for me to cook every day, then one of the things that we can do is prep or to do batch cooking, I think. Yeah. So that's one suggestion. Yeah. So is how do I creatively deal with that thing that's stressing me out? If you're always forgetting things and not as organized, then get an organizer. So it's all about brainstorming and trying to see different ways in which you can approach the same situation. Sometimes a problem is not going to leave. It's just the how way we approach it, our mindset around it. The second thing that we can be aware of or we can try to practice is maybe to set boundaries around what it is that's causing us stress. So this means that we got to communicate. If you're at home and you feel like you are not getting that support that you need as much as at home, either from your partner or whoever else is at home, then maybe it's time to have a family meeting with the kids and everybody and say, hey, these are all the things that needs to be done in the home. And I realize I'm getting very overwhelmed and it's been hard to manage. And let's talk about how everybody can chip in to help to make things a little bit easier. So a lot of times it's about communication, right? And if you find that there are other circumstances where maybe the way someone talks to you or the way they approach situations with you kind of overwhelms you and stresses you, then maybe it's worth a conversation. If you're working with an individual and the approach that they take is stressful to you, you can have a conversation with them to say, I appreciate your feedback. I appreciate the input that you put in our work on a day-to-day basis. But the way it is done, the way it's communicated to me, it's very overwhelming and it's very stressful on my system. And just be honest about it, right? Calm, collected communication works better for me. It helps me to think clearer and makes the experience much more pleasant, right? So it's all about creating boundaries, knowing what it is that you don't like and being clear on communicating those. Also create boundaries for yourself. Know when to say no. If you realize that you're already inundated with a lot of things to do and you can't take on anymore, you're at capacity, just say no, right? So you also need to have boundaries for yourself as well. And that definitely will reduce the amount of stress. So if you can't do it, you just can't do it. And sometimes it just helps to delegate and ask for help. Sometimes you just need to delegate and ask for help. Another factor with stress or a mental thing that we could think about is sometimes we experience much more stress by being rigid about the stressful factor. So what I mean by that is we focus so much on the fact that I wish this wasn't the case. I wish this didn't happen. I wish I didn't have to do this. I wish I didn't have to do this task or this work and so forth. And the more we think about it, is the more it starts to affect our brain, our mood. We start to release stress chemicals and we start to feel worse. And so a lot of times it's the mindset that we need to have about a particular situation. I'm not saying we are to invalidate our feelings because that would be harmful, but instead of invalidating our feelings, we can also, well, first of all, validate. I understand this is very hard for you and so forth. But another thing that we can do is just realize that sometimes we can't do some things, we just have to accept. For example, if I have to do an exam, I just have to accept that it's a part of the process. And the sooner we accept certain things that is out of our control, is the better we clear up our mental space to be able to brainstorm and to strategize how we're going to deal with the situation, right? There's a prayer, God grant me the serenity, I believe, to accept the things I cannot change and the wisdom to know the difference or something like that. And there's so much power in that because sometimes we just can't change a situation. Sometimes we just can't change the situation. Sometimes we have to just think of our thoughts. What am I thinking about the situation? Am I thinking the worst case scenario? Am I hypothesizing as to the worst things that could possibly happen in this situation? And if I'm hypothesizing, then I need to let go of those worries. But if it's a current issue, current problem, then I need to say to myself, is this something that I can do something about? Can I do something about this? And if you can do something about it, you decide when. When am I going to deal with it? Am I going to deal with it now or am I going to deal with it later? And then if you're going to deal with it now, if you can, deal with it now and let the worry go, let the frustration go, let the stress go. If it is something that you decide you need to do later, schedule it. Who am I going to talk to? What am I going to talk about? When am I going to talk about it and why? And you write that down and then you schedule it. Don't worry about that thing until the time comes, right? So it's all about management as well, self-management as well for you, because that really helps. And then the last one that I want to share with you is learning the art of adjusting. So learning how to adjust to certain things. Sometimes our expectations can cause so much stress on us. And what do I mean by that? We may have an assignment or a project that we're trying to complete, and in our minds, it has to be perfect. Now, there's a difference between setting a high standard and doing excellent work, cutting edge work. There's a difference between that and expecting perfection. When we expect perfection, we're actually we are imposing so much pressure on ourselves, unrealistic pressure on ourselves, because the reality is that we are humans. Nobody's perfect. Chances are we're going to make mistakes. We're going to miss something. And so, but when we say we have to get this perfectly done, we're applying extra stress on ourselves. And when we do that, we find that it robs us the opportunity of doing something from a place of rest. It robs us of having the opportunity to creatively make decisions and enjoy the process itself. We're so stressed. We're so extremely stressed that even the process of the project itself, we find we have a terrible time with it because of our expectations around it. So we also need to adjust the way we see certain stressors and adjust the way our mindset is around particular stressors. If your expectation is every day I have to have fresh meals for my family, but in reality, it is hard to maintain all of that expectations. Sometimes we need to adjust. We need to be flexible to say that's not realistic for our family lifestyle and dynamic. It's not realistic. Let me just allow myself to accept the fact that it's okay to meal prep. and it's okay to stock food and things like that. And that level of acceptance will help to reduce the stressor as well. Of course, if you find you're having a hard time letting go of certain things, even if there's room for flexibility, then we got to ask ourselves why. What is the trigger? Why am I having a hard time here? Where is this worry? Where is this coming from? Is this something that is connected to my past or connected to something that I haven't dealt with yet? And if something like that is going on for you, I definitely recommend you talk to somebody about it. Talk to a trusted friend, talk to someone who you feel would have very good insight into helping you to process things and work things through, or reach out to a professional, a counselor, to kind of help you to work through certain dynamics that you may have struggled with and have a hard time being flexible around. So yeah, these are some things that I wanted to share with you. Is the first thing is just to reframe the way you deal with the stressor itself. It doesn't have to be one way. We don't have to, the stressor doesn't have to be operating in one way, or the way we respond to it doesn't have to be one way. There are ways in which we can adjust our behaviors and in around it in order to deal with the situation. The other one is create boundaries. If you can't do something, you just can't do something. You don't have capacity to do something, right? So create boundaries around that. If someone or a dynamic is not healthy for you, communicate that. Communicate that. Hey, this is not healthy for me. I'm having a hard time here. It's overwhelming me. It's eroding on me. It's eroding my system, my health, and my well being. Communicate that clearly to individuals and, definitely keep people accountable for um, keep maintaining or respecting your boundaries. Also, keep yourself accountable for respecting other people's boundaries too. Accept that there are things that we just can't change and we just got to keep moving forward. And when you do that, you open up your mind space to have the ability to creatively now think, how am I going to deal with this situation? I can't change it, but how am I going to cope with it? What are some things that I need to do to work through this scenario or this circumstance in order to cope well and be healthy, maintain that mental health and well-being? And the last thing is, what are some things that I need to adjust? What are some mindsets that I need to adjust? And yeah, pretty much just go along with that and see how that helps. So I believe this type of stress management is not the conventional way in which we would hear. For example, you'd hear, okay, write down a certain amount of things that you have and then prioritize and all that stuff, which those are a part of it. Those are a part of it. But I wanted to focus on the mindset part. Is sometimes, a lot of times, is how, actually all the time, it's how do we deal with the stress? Mentally, how do I deal with the stress? Because it starts from there. It gives you the capacity to do the organization and prioritizing and so forth. It's the mindset. So that's what I wanted to share with you all today for Wellness Wednesday, and I hope that it was helpful. Let me know. Let me know which of these have been very helpful for you if you've been practicing it, or which of these would be something that you think, huh, you know what? I never tried that approach before. Let me try that. So comment below, and if this video was helpful, definitely share it with others as well. And remember to like, to subscribe, and definitely share this with your friends. Until next time, I'm Dr. Sani Duki. Stay well, be well, and be blessed. Take care.